Oh, man. You have no idea how much I needed this. My day today has sort of sucked.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's full of corporate suck. And I'm glad to be able to just not worry about that. for 5 minutes. Or 30
corporate
or 45,
suck.
however long this goes. Yeah. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm okay. I was a victim of identity theft.
No, you weren't.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Is everything okay?
I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Was it like a full-bodied clone, or is this only like a digital identity theft?
It's the less exciting one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And also the less concerning one.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
my supervisor called me while I was on the route one day and was like, when did you get back from layoffs? And I was like, I wasn't laid off. He said, well, HR is telling me you filed for unemployment. I was like, that's news to me. And he's like, okay. And then somebody tried to file for unemployment, in my name, which apparently is, this year has been a huge problem. And one of the things that's recommended was to go to your local police station and report it. I went there and they're like, oh, we're not taking reports for those anymore. Just call this number. And I'm like, okay. So I basically I had to call.
Sorry, your call is important to us.
Well, no, actually, it was even worse than that. It was they're like, I had to leave a message, and then I had to wait for a call back, and they were like, we will call you back between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And I'm like, so at any point, and then we will attempt a second time within a few minutes. And if you don't miss it, you have to call back and schedule another callback appointment. Luckily, I answered when they called me. It was like a couple of days later. This was from the IDES or whatever. Is that what it is? The Illinois Department of Employment Security or whatever. I don't know. So I had to. They had to close that unemployment claim, and then basically I had to like put my the credit bureaus on alert and check my credit reports and make sure nothing else phony was going on. And it looks like there's nothing else that happened with that, but apparently that's a huge thing. And apparently people from like overseas have been doing this. Like,
right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that kind of thing is going to be just a really big problem in the future. Like systems that used to work based off of just people being like off of systems that didn't require any kind of like cryptographic identity is going to be a thing of the past, in my opinion, because I think that this sort of stuff is too easy. It's like so much fancier than just a check forgery of the days past. Yeah, it's like you can steal everything.
Fancy emails now that you get from I get emails from like PayPal. And it says it's from PayPal, like service.paypal. I don't even know how they get it to look like it's sent from the official place. And it says like, your account has been suspended and click on this link. And I'm like, no. And then when I go into my, when I independently log into my PayPal account, nothing's wrong. So it's just like, it's crazy.
No.
Hey, I forgot to mention what, the song faded away now, but what you heard there at the beginning was Shania Twain, actually, with her new single, Sledgehammer Suicide, from a brand new upcoming album, Brutalized, Butchered, and Buried, which,
wow.
It's quite a departure from her earlier work, and a lot of fans are upset, actually, for, that it's so different.
My wife's was a huge fan back in the day.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, and Twain herself responded to the criticism. She said, I come from a background of diverse musical influences, and as an artist, I strive not to limit myself to simply repeating what has brought me success in the past. I grew up listening to my grandfather's old Carcass and Cannibal Corpse records, so really I see this as a return to my brutal death, gore grind roots. I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to hear what it sounds like. Apparently she's got a re-recorded version of That Don't Impress Me Much. That Don't Impress Me Much. Except it's called You Don't Eviscerate Much. So
Right.
it'd be interesting.
I haven't heard it. Maybe we should play that on the way out or something. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we have the. I
got something
you're not
else.
the rights.
Yeah, I don't know. But
You know what? I just realized maybe putting a podcast out there with our real names is not a good way to protect you against identity theft.
Well,
Oh wait.
I mean, that crossed my mind, but I don't really know. I mean, people use their names, and for things. That's all I'm giving. I don't know. I'm not giving out my other personal information.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I went to school with at least 4 glasses.
Fuck you. Stop saying my name. It's a deterrent. The fewer times you say it.
Beetlejuice. What?
Well, I was going to say, you have a correction, don't you, about our last episode? There was something very, very serious that we
This
about.
I really never thought it would come to this. You're right, though, that we do have a correction to make. I think I want everyone to understand just how sorry we are, and you can tell by the piano music playing in the background. In our last episode, I mentioned that Yella, the creator of Marble Olympics, is from Finland, and that could not be more wrong. I have looked into it, and despite all of my looking, it turns out Finland is not in the Netherlands, nor is the Netherlands inside of Finland.
Yes, we were under the impression that Netherlands was a province of Finland.
But it's not even a little bit. And as a result, I need to apologize. Really, we need to both apologize. I'm sorry, Yella. He's from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And I hope we can put this shameful performance behind us.
Yeah. It turns out Netherlands and Finland are 2 completely separate cities within the country of Blagonzia.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
So that's we apologize to Yella. I hope you're pronouncing his name right, because if that's another thing we have to correct, you know.
No.
And we also apologize. No. We apologize.
Jelly? Is it pronounced jelly?
Jelly. We also apologize to the Netherlands and to Finland. And anyone else we may have inadvertently offended by that. Speaking of this whole Yella and his Marble League, and you gave me the assignment last time of watching some of the Marble League and letting you know which team I thought was the best or which was my favorite team or something.
Yes. Well, and what was your overall impression? Before we get to that?
And I know we can't spend another whole episode talking about the Marble League here, but
suddenly you want to. I understand.
Well, let me just say that so what I did is I watched the 2021 Winter Special. I believe it's like the most recent thing. I mean,
it is. I haven't seen it yet. Don't spoil it.
Well, then how am I supposed to answer your question about what the
of
best
all the ones
team
you could have
is?
watched? Oh,
I know what team won.
Fine.
I know. I was afraid this was going to happen, but that's your own fault. You must not be a real fan if you haven't even seen the pre-recorded replay.
I know.
A month later.
I know. It's been busy around here.
So, look, I mean, it seems like some of the best teams, I'm going to tell you, the Rangers did do quite well, and they did well, especially in the second half. The first half, it seemed like the Oceanics, the Hazers, and the Thunderbolts were doing the best. So some of the best teams in terms of how they performed, at least in this particular season, were those.
Yeah.
But I mean, beyond that, like, I think the prettiest marbles are the green ducks,
Yes.
but that's just because I like green.
Yes.
But they didn't do that
No.
well enough for me to like want to root for them.
They were actually sponsored originally by Hank Green, the important video blogger and author, who was a real
Okay.
human who created the green ducks named after him. And I assume his favorite color. I just assume it's green. I
Right.
assume he gets that a lot as well.
Well,
Sorry,
so-
Hank.
Well, but I mean, the Oceanics are pretty marbles too. The other ones, actually, I didn't mention. What are they called? The Galaxy something.
Team Galactic?
Team Galactic. That one probably has the coolest name. They have the coolest names. You know, they have names like Pulsar
Yeah.
and Quasar and stuff. So
Yes.
that's fun. So I mean, you know, if I were to pick like just a favorite team of who I want to be my favorite, would be the Green Ducks because I like the way they look.
Yeah, that's good enough. That's
But
good enough.
but so my overall impression is, well, I stand by my previous statement that it's only half a sport.
Okay.
And I think I feel that way even from the perspective of a viewer, because I found it not quite as interesting to watch as other sports because the complexity of behavior of a marble is much simpler. And so, like, you can't. I mean, it's just marbles knocking around, like you said, by the governed by the laws of physics. And like, I think part of what's fun about watching a sport is you're watching a demonstration of someone's skill that they have taken years to develop, something they've gotten good at.
I don't know. When I
so-
see those people, I don't think I just think it's all physics at that point too on the screen.
Yeah, well, but that's because, well, okay, and see, here's an interesting thing is you compared this to the Olympics, and you like watching it the way you like watching the Olympics, and
Yes.
Olympics is an obvious comparison because that's kind of the most similar thing to what
Yes.
we have. The Marble League is kind of like that, with these weird kind of events, like you said, swimming and the other stuff like that. But but the other reason I think you can compare it to the Olympics is because you probably like it because you're not. I feel like the Olympics are the sports that lay people can enjoy because nobody is really like an expert in shot put. Like you watch shot put and you're like this is
Yes.
ridiculous. This guy's trying to throw a cannonball that he's pressed against his
Yes.
chin for some reason.
Yes.
And so you watch it as like a fun thing, like, oh, but look at him go.
Yes.
But there's people who like watch, football, baseball, basketball, and they do pay attention to like the minutia of how this person is, how skilled they are, and they're comparing it to previous athletes they've seen and like MVPs in the past, and they're like they have this knowledge of the sport.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, it's I don't know. I feel like something that seems to generally be true of your personality is that just knowing you is that you like you love the idea of getting like excited about something and having fun with it. But I think like a lot of the time if somebody's passion for something becomes to the point where they start taking it too seriously, it like turns you off. And I don't know if that it seems to be like
That's probably true.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, just like, because you don't really, like whether it's movies or music or even video games, you're like, oh, this is fun, let's have fun. And like, and I agree with you that like, I think if somebody's watching sports and screaming at the television, then they've just got like a temper problem or something. But like, but on the other hand, like I can relate to like the idea of like having like a love for something that you like grew up, I don't know, with, and it means a lot to you. And so like you kind of become a snob about it and you're like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to play the game. And because you have this high respect for the game,
Mm-hmm.
And like, I guess I feel like to say that the Marble League is equivalent to a real sport is like, it's kind of like if you set up a bunch of bobblehead dolls and had them bob their heads randomly and said, well, this is the equivalent of ballet. I think you like offend some ballet dancers who are like, well, that's nice, but I've been studying to like get really good at this for years, and I don't know, because I love it because it means something to me, and so Those are the thoughts that were going through my head.
I mean, you might be
it.
insulting some marbles right now.
I am. It's true. It's true.
So half sport. That's your conclusion.
So we have to first agree on the premise that the marbles are not actually athletes. So if
we're
we
going to
disagree
have to
with that,
just agree to disagree on this.
I guess so. You know what? We got to do. We're going to have to put. We're going to have to start doing. I don't know. We're going to have to add like features. You're going to have to add features to the website.
Oh, I do. It's so bad.
We need
It'll
to get
better.
I don't know who's listening yet, but we have to get people and get listeners involved. We should like do a poll of like, what do you think? Is the Marble League like a?
Oh my gosh, we should. Let's do polls. That's a great idea.
Which one of the two of us do you agree with?
That's
Basically,
such a good
I'm
idea.
curious.
Yes, I'll put that on the website. I promise. Before next episode. Before this is out.
Okay.
No, when this is out.
Yeah.
When this is out, it'll be on the website.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I did want to mention is as we're coming up to our eventually to our Matt Hat discussion, I think one thing I'm glad to note is that on our website, by the time you're listening to this, there will be a link where you can submit your own ideas into the Matt Hat. If there's something that you would like us to talk about, feel free to submit it to that link. I forgot to put that up until now.
I didn't even know you were working on this. Yeah, that's another thing we should certainly add.
Because that's way better than just us talking about our own ideas. Listeners submitted things, super support.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, I feel like I'm not very good at coming up with really good ideas. I'm like struggling to, so it'll help for sure.
Yeah, when I think of someone lacking creativity, I'm like Matt Glass.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't know, man.
I just said your name again. Is that a problem?
Fuck.
So
yeah.
Let's pull up that. Let's get that hat ready.
Oh, okay. We should, but first, this podcast was brought to you by Steve. If you're like most Americans, there's nothing you hate more than trying to get along with coworkers you just can't stand. All that gossip, workplace drama, small talk, all those disingenuous smiles, fake pleasantries, and awkward conversations that come with being stuck in an office for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with the same few people you don't even like. Introducing Steve. Steve is that guy in one of those cubicles between Dave and Kashana. I want to say he's in the next one over from Kim, but now I'm second-guessing myself. The point is, Steve keeps mostly to himself, and you'll rarely hear him say anything obnoxious, nosy, or self-aggrandizing. In fact, because of his low self-esteem and severe social anxiety, Steve is unlikely to approach you for any reason whatsoever, or frankly say anything to you at all. If you're unfamiliar with Steve, that's okay. Steve works in the background so that you can focus on the things that matter. And Steve will never ask you to change the way you do your job or draw attention to any mistakes you may have made while performing your duties. Plus, Steve's impoverished sense of self-worth will prevent him from ever asking you if you want to go out for drinks after work. And with Steve's crippling fear of confrontation, you can rest assured that Steve will never possess the assertiveness to make known his own hurt feelings when you neglect to invite him to social events. With Steve, your sense of social obligation is a thing of the past. And Steve is gay, so you'll never have to worry about him creeping on you. Not a woman? Don't worry. For the foreseeable future, Steve will lack the courage to even come out of the closet, much less risk humiliating himself by asking you out on a date after misjudging you as a not straight guy. But wait, there's more. Now and for a limited time only, Steve will be so overcome with feelings of grief after having put down his cat that you can probably even get him to do a bunch of your work for you. No fussy pleading or tiresome manipulation necessary. Steve's constant sense of self-directed guilt and profound self-loathing means he's desperate to be liked and will pretty much do whatever you ask at the drop of a hat. So act fast. Still not convinced? Well, don't take our word for it. Just listen to some of Steve's customer testimonials. Caitlin from the front desk says, "What? I don't know who that is. Now, who's the asshole that didn't bother to start a fresh brew?" Ramya from HR had this to say, "We have a lot of employees here. You're going to have to be more specific than that." And Justin from accounting raves, "Oh yeah, I've got no problem with Steve. I mean, I don't really know him, but he seems okay, I guess. Oh wait, did you say Steve? Never mind, I don't know who that is." So what are you waiting for? Pick up the phone today and call Steve to ask him to cover for you at work for the 4th time in a month so that you can spend some more time at the driving range. You won't be disappointed. Steve. It's like he's not even there. Not to be confused with Stuart or Mitch. Steve is not responsible for any feelings of remorse you may experience for treating him like he doesn't even fucking exist. Steve's views do not necessarily represent those of anyone, really, since he constantly feels too self-conscious and frightened to express any of them. Consult with your heartless asshole friends before interacting with Steve if you have a history of a conscience or are generally a decent human being with a heart, for Christ's sake.
That was very important. I'm glad that Steve is sponsoring this episode very much. I might actually use that myself, I think, in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Steve's great. I mean, I think I know who you're talking about.
Let's get the hat.
Oh,
Let's
the
get
hat. I forgot about the hat. It's my job, really, you know.
It is. It's a physical hat. You can hear the sounds of the physical pieces of paper bouncing around in the physical bowler hat.
Okay. Here's the topic for the day. I'm opening the... Oh, I just put this one in. I don't even know. I don't know if you saw. I put in, is metal music dangerous?
That's a great topic.
Which I know sounds like a dated topic. I mean, it sounds like it belongs in like 1980 or something.
Yes, with the Satanic Panic.
Right, but this is fitting because of the Shania Twain song at the beginning. But anyway, I put this in there because you sent me an article recently, which the other thing we should do is you mentioned this. We should do some show notes where hopefully we can put out like links to things we reference. But
that's probably a good idea. Actually.
Yeah. So because I don't have it pulled up. I don't remember. But you sent me an article recently.
I did.
That was
do you want
about.
Me to pull it up?
Yeah, sure. I don't remember. Okay. We should at least say who it's
This
by.
This is from Gizmodo.com from someone named Kim Kelly, and Kim wrote an article saying with the title "A Beginner's Guide to Heavy Metal Nazi Hunting Online." Yes,
and I read this article, and it made me think about a bunch of things that I had never really thought about.
Well, wait a second. None of our none of our listeners.
Yeah.
Let's hope we never have viewers. None of our listeners know you or your background, and so you might want to explain a little bit about your relationship with metal music.
Yeah, we're never going to have viewers as long as I have this haircut.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I was going to say, I grew up around metal music because of my brother, who's 6 years older than me. So by the time he was listening to music, I was still rather young. I mean, I was like 6 or 7 or something when he started like really getting into listening to music. And so I grew up around, and I eventually got into, started listening to some metal myself, and I caught the bug. It took a while. It's kind of an acquired taste, and for some people, and for me, it was. And now I listen to it. I'm kind of like I'm weird though in the sense that like I like I think I like writing music more than I love listening to music, but I'm not like how there's some people that are just like these walking encyclopedias of like they know all the bands and
yes,
all the like. So, like, my brother was kind of like that for metal. Like, he listened to everything that was out there, and he, like, knew all about everything. And I was just like...
Satan's Toes. Yeah, I've heard their new release.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is... but I would like, oh, I like this band. And then I'd, like, listen to that band for, like, 5 years. And then... So, like, I listen... I talk to people who are into metal, and I actually feel a little bit, like I don't, a little insecure because they're like, what bands do you like? And I'm like, I like these 3 bands. And they're like, well, what else? And I'm like, that's mostly it, So, but at the same time, I love the genre. Like, I love the sound, the style, and the sound. But what's interesting is that, like, metal has this history of, basically trying to be shocking for the sake of being shocking.
Yes. Like countercultural because cultural is fundamentally broken.
exactly. And I love that in principle about it. So like my initial instinct is to already answer the question with generally no, metal is not dangerous. And I love that metal is there for people who kind of are otherwise marginalized and don't have like metal has done a lot of good things for a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
when you're growing up, you're like in high school and you know, you don't feel like you fit in. You feel like you have all these sort of dark feelings and emotions that are like not, you feel they're not okay to express. And so
I even think it's more than that. I think it's not just like I think it's like a recognition that the world is in some sense a joke, or like the world is in some sense like a lie, or like the things you have been told, like the sort of pleasantries of the modern American family or whatever are in some sense shallow. And what you're and so you are like this mythical teenager is trying to resolve the feeling of like this is such a joke, and trying to find other people who agree.
Yeah.
So that you don't feel so alone.
Right. And I so I think there's a couple parts of it. I think there is like a kind of more intellectual satirical element to it where like you're saying it's kind of criticizing some elements of larger society. But I also think it is something that people connect to on like a more personal level. You know, it's kind of like people. This is a good thing about people, but you know, people try to like stay positive, I guess. You know, in the face of problems and adversity and struggles, and some people find it hard to do that. And when you're growing up and like you're surrounded by like all these parental figures and adult figures and people who are like trying to like artificially sort of force this sunshine and roses thing, and you're like, I don't feel that way. Like I feel, you know, whatever. I feel angry. I feel depressed. I feel sad.
Yeah.
And like you have these people who write this dark music, and you're like, I have someone who understands me, because in my immediate social circle, like that makes me feel even more alone, you know? So I think that element is there too. I remember reading several years ago, I read something about an article about Iggy Pop, which I don't know much about Iggy Pop, but I know he's like, I've heard him be referred to as the grandfather of punk or something. And like, and punk and metal are kind of similar. They kind of develop alongside each other in a way. There's some animosity between punk and metal people sometimes, but like they're kind of similar in the in their countercultural, you know, sense. Yeah. And like Iggy Pop, I guess I don't know if he grew up in the 60s or if he maybe started doing music in the 60s or something. And it was interesting is he had this reaction to like the hippies in the 60s, right? Then they were countercultural, but he was turned off by their like kind of attempts to be like, to make it all like sunshine or roses, like as though there was like a really happy, positive alternative to this, to the, you know, modern, to society. And, and, you know, they'd be like, oh, just relax, man, free love. And he's like, and Iggy Pop was like, this is a sham. Like, this is not going to work. This isn't like an honest reaction or whatever. It's like trying to, you know, to make something happy that isn't. And so that kind of, it's like I don't know. I just feel like this is kind of the origin of all this stuff, like metal and punk. And so I feel like metal at its heart is like awesome for that reason. And like I've got an album by Dio. Ronnie James Dio was the second singer of Black Sabbath, I believe, and he went solo and released the first album by Dio, started the band Dio, and the first album was called The Holy Diver. And like, I love his lyrics, and they have this kind of like really passionate like stuff about people, like marginalized people struggling and stuff. And I feel like later on what happened was metal started to go further and further with trying to be countercultural,
Right.
to the point where sometimes to the point where it like went too far, in my opinion, and became like kind of a perversion of that original spirit. And then you had all these bands that were just singing about like serial killers and murdering people, and then all these songs about all these bands that like that are anti-Christian, and they're like, we're going to worship the devil and we're going to, kill all your Christian friends or something. And it's like, and a lot of these bands were not, most of these bands, they didn't take that seriously. It was like this tongue-in-cheek thing. It was like, it was just,
they were their own parody or like satire.
Yeah,
of
it started
this
to become
movement.
parody of itself, basically. And so I never really liked, like, I loved the music, but I never really got into the culture of it. I don't have any tattoos or piercings. I don't wear black all the time. I never like got into that because there were all these things that turned me off about the presentation of it. And there's some kind of, there's also this kind of like tough guy macho thing that goes on in metal too, because it's like, we're angry. And sometimes it just feels a little obligatory, especially nowadays, 30 years, 40 years later after metal started, you got all these bands that are like, I'm going to scream and be angry. And you're like, yeah. And it's like, I feel like some bands are just doing it because they feel like they're supposed to. It's like, it's no longer, it's countercultural to the mainstream culture, but it's conforming to the metal subculture. And it's this weird sort of thing like that, that kind of annoys me sometimes. So any metalheads listening to this are like, well, then this guy's a poser. He's not true metal. He doesn't know what he's talking about anyway.
No, I mean, I'm sure all those people have already rejected us immediately. But the article was interesting because it talks about like it talks about the article in summary, it talks about like how to identify that the metal band that you think is really cool they're actually Nazis.
Right.
Like how to figure out if they're actually terrible people.
Yeah,
somehow.
And she's got like some kind of wiki resources about like looking into these bands and stuff, and it's useful, helpful information. But it was also something that I never really thought about, because even in the 90s, when there were all these like Scandinavian black metal bands, like in Norway, like over there in Norway, people were scared of these bands because they actually were like fans of these bands, like burning down churches and stuff. Yeah. And like, and then there's stories of like some of these, there was a famous story about this band Mayhem. I mean, there's like a couple stories of some of these bands that like, murdered someone or did something crazy and violent. And like, and it's kind of like, but over here in the States, like that kind of stuff wasn't going on, that kind of extreme, like criminal behavior. And so my brother, like I was still a kid, and he kind of taught me to like not be afraid of it. And he's like, oh, it's all a joke. Like nobody's taking seriously. So he would like listen to these black metal bands, and he would like laugh at them. And he'd still like them, but he'd just be like, oh, this is so silly, this anti-Christian stuff. Yeah. And so like, I guess I never like really considered the degree to which like some of this was like really was scary and like bad, because I've been
What if you don't see it as being like a parody or satire? Like what if you're introduced to this and you're like, no, this is it. This is the truth. And you're not, and you don't have this like, and you don't have that like either the like intelligence or like context to recognize like that extreme behavior as being kind of a parody or being kind of ridiculous, and therefore you're like, no, this is the way to do it. Yeah, we got to go burn down some churches or whatever, right?
Right, and that happened, and like, actually, there was I don't remember. My brother told me this story more recently about some band that was a black metal band, and I'd have to ask him the details of this again, but I don't remember which band it was. But like, the guy from this band, I guess in the 90s they'd done like the anti-Christians, the war on Christianity, whatever, the kind of black metal thing, wearing upside down crosses and stuff. And and maybe just like he claimed that like as an artist, maybe he got sick of that theme, and so he started going with this like Nazi theme or something, and he claimed that it was just again trying to shock people just for shock value.
Yeah.
And I guess some like some journalists like uncovered this and they're like, oh, there's these ties to neo-Nazism, and they and then he got like all this flack and all this stuff. My brother kind of was like, well, you know, this guy, he wanted to stir up controversy and he got it, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know where my brother heard that. If maybe he even talked to somebody who knew him, because my brother used to like go like meet some of these bands and talk to some of these people. But like he had like some sort of seemingly inside information that that these sort of journalists were reporting on this, but it was like kind of bullshit. Like he's not really a Nazi. He's just he's using this imagery. And like, I'm like, oh yeah. 'Cause like I'm used to approaching metal that way. And so this article that you wrote made me be like, well, now I'm wondering, like some of these bands maybe just try to pass it off as a tongue-in-cheek joke, but they really, you know, are white supremacists. Yeah. And it's hard to tell. And I don't even know with her advice, it's a woman, right, that wrote this article, I think.
I assume.
She, like, I don't even know if you can ultimately tell for sure, right? With some of these bands, it's so like maybe their message is so coded, and But
I found it to be really interesting too. Like I was never exposed to metal except through you as a kid, and maybe like one other friend. But it was like, it just the whole scene was always just totally uninteresting to me in every way. And I remember one day you were like, you need to tune your ear to the fine distortions of the fine melodies of the distortion guitar.
Yes,
or something like that. And I was like, huh. And so I listened to, I'm sure it was like In Flames or something, which you were super into.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I could see this. This is fun. But as I'm the kind of person that doesn't care about lyrics at all in any songs, almost ever. And so
I used to be like that too.
I just don't like, and so the lyrics, so I never really got into it because like I think a lot of the appeal to a lot of that kind of music is like the specific imagery and the music and the specific construction of like their, you know, rhyme or their a rhyme or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt the same way, but I think it helped that I didn't care about lyrics because I was like, I don't really care what they're singing about. Like, but I never got into like the really, like the bands that had like really unpleasant lyrics, like about, you know, like I said, the serial killers or whatever. The brutal death metal, I didn't really like that. I like the kind of more melodic stuff or kind of thrashier stuff, and you know, some of these songs write like about thoughtful topics, and they're dark, but like, you know, I understand, like she wrote this article because like even for people who listen to metal, it's hard to know where the line is because it's supposed to be edgy, it's supposed to be shocking and dark and focus on dark things, and so, like there are certain metal songs where the lyrics are written about a particular really dark topic or disturbing topic, but the lyrics don't have like a clear stance on it. They're just kind of presenting it. And some bands have gotten, like Slayer wrote a band about like a jihad, like a suicide bomber or something, and it was like written from the perspective of the bomber.
Yeah.
And like, and they were like, I don't know. I think there was some, you know, they were on the news or say, like they got kind of blasted for this, and they're like, we're just interested in the subject matter. I mean, they wrote another song about way back in the day, Angel of Death, about Mengele, you know, who perform experiments in the Holocaust, and it's like these really horrific topics, but they're just like they don't believe literally, you know, what they're singing about. They're just presenting these dark things, and most bands, most lyrics are like that. And so it's like, that's like when you get into metal, you get used to that, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a question for you. So like given that this is supposed to be reactionary, like this is all about being countercultural, but now there is a well-established like metal subculture. Like what do you think happens next? Like what do you think is the future of this of this genre, of this movement? Do you think it just devolves into just parody, into just you're not like you mimicking what has already been done? And thereby, like, well, establishing the genre, and then there's no further development. Or do you think that that this edginess will somehow remain? Like, for example, like I know you like baby metal quite a bit, which
I
is
love
in some
baby
sense,
metal. But
which
that-
is like that's like a subversion of the subgenre, right?
Yeah, it's a
they're
subversion
going
of all
back-
kinds of things. It's also a subversion
Yeah.
of pop music, and that's part
And
of what
the
I love
Japanese
about it.
idol thing. Yeah. So
Is-
what I'm
yeah.
wondering is like, where does metal go next? Like, what do you think is like the next thing that's going to happen?
I really don't know, because there's so much metal that has become sort of, I guess, tiresome to me, but and then but it's growing. Like there's so many metal bands. There's like thousands upon thousands of metal bands now, and yeah, a lot of them like all sound the same, but like I guess maybe it doesn't have to. I don't think it has to actually go anywhere or progress in any way in order to stay alive, because I think metal is a fairly young genre of music, and I think that it was finding itself for a while, and I think there is kind of like a standard or like a default like metal sound now maybe, and it's kind of become an established genre. You know, like jazz still exists, but people were pushing the limits of jazz in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and at a certain point jazz kind of just became almost standardized. Like this is recognizable as jazz, and people still play it, you know. And I think maybe a little of that is happening with metal. But there are definitely people have been pushing the boundaries in recent years. Like in terms of musicianship is one thing. Like, I mean,
more notes per second.
Well,
more good notes per second.
There's it's so funny because like these like world class famous guitarists that like used to do these blinding fast, you know, shredding, you know, Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen, whatever his name is. But like even like the classic, like the metal, like Kirk Hammett, even John Petrucci from Dream Theater, these guys, like you go on YouTube, you'll find like 10 like 17-year-old kids and videos that are like that blow these people out of the water, you know, and like playing the guitar and like drums too. There used to be, you know, drums are always really fast in metal, and you know, it started with like, you know, rock beat is like kick snare, and then like, well, let's do that faster, and then like kicks. Then there was like the double time beat, which is like that kind of punky like, you know, like kick snare, and then they got even faster and faster for that. And then there was a thing called the blast beat that was heavily used in black metal, which I think was kind of borrowed from jazz, which is like this rapid machine gun fire kick snare like thing. And I heard somebody was talking about how like last few years there are these musicians that came out that found like a new technique to like hit the snare drum from like both ends of the stick or something, and do it like and do this blast beat like twice as fast as like people in the 90s were even doing it. You know, like it's like the level of musicianship has gone through the roof.
Soon they'll start playing music from the harmonics. You know, of the funking.
Yes, exactly. I don't know, but there have also been interesting things. I don't remember the name of the band. We'll put it in our show notes. My brother just introduced me to this like weird, almost kind of avant-garde band.
Or maybe we can add it in as an ADR afterwards.
Yeah.
Like right.
You're
hearing
I'll
us
punch
talk
in.
like going forth, and suddenly it's like, and it's like, actually the band's name is this, and then all right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't remember the name of the band. Soulflex is the name of the band. That's not the name of a metal band. Anyway, there's this. Yeah, he showed me like there's this really weird band that like that like plays with mixing different genres with metal. And I mean, it's kind of like Baby Metal did, but they're like a lot like weirder and more kind of indie sounding. And they like have these like electronic and like dance stuff. And then they like mix in this like Arabic sounding or like folk music and like all these. I feel like there was like something with like an accordion. Like they have like these weird things that they're doing, but it's like still metal sort of
Gypsy jazz metal.
Yeah, so there's always going to be kind of. So there's always going to be like progressive stuff that people do. I just think it's interesting that like progressive metal, like the word progressive just means that like you're you're straying from the standard like thing for the genre and kind of doing something more complex. And that already happened like in the early 90s. So then like there became this genre that's called progressive metal or prog metal. And that genre has like a certain sound to it.
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of like, well, then it's not really progressive. It was just
that's like modern art, right? That's like modern.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm sure there's a theater equivalent, like it's just, anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, people are bad at naming things.
Yeah. So
those are the two important things. Those are two hardest problems in computer science, actually.
What?
Some cache consistency, naming things, and off by one errors.
Well, I'll put that in the mad hat because I have no idea what you're talking about. No, anyway, I won't. Nobody will listen to that episode.
No one will listen to that. You don't want to listen to things me talk about computer science. No one wants to know about. Actually, that's not exactly true, but generally no. Generally the answer is
yes.
No. That was a great topic. Thank you for putting it in the Mad Hat. I learned a lot. I really appreciate your.
I don't know what it is about the last, like the most recent topic I put in. I shuffle this thing, and then like we pull out the last thing I just put in. But yeah,
I don't. It was fun. Randomness is hard. How are we going to close it today?
Well, we're going to tell people to keep in touch with
and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, which do they have a way of doing that yet? I don't know.
Nope.
You're going to add things to the website. People are going to, keep checking in. No, keep
I'm
checking
going to put the YouTube like and subscribe buttons onto our website.
Jesus.
They do nothing, but you'll be able to click them.
Yeah. No, they link to Rick Astley. That's what, reference from 10 years ago. Anyway, check out for exciting new things happening on our website and stuff. You can also follow us on Facebook, Mad Hatters, and you're singing over the music that's already playing. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna leave you with Rick Astley. What? Hit song, Never Gonna Give You Up. Here it is. Enjoy. it's up to our discretion what we're actually putting in the hat. So yeah,
It's not like immediately if you just say like, "I want you to talk about poop," we're going to be like, "Yes, great." And we'll do it because
I'll
you
talk
put
about
it in the
poop.
hat.
I will talk about poop. That's not. But
I don't
yeah,
want to talk about that. No one wants to hear about your poop or anybody's
I didn't
poop.
say my poop. Okay.
Well, maybe we can. Yeah, maybe a little general poop in general. That's good. Going to that hat. Poop parenthesis in general and parenthesis.